About 2 years ago, I learned a lesson the hard way. I was driving home late at night after a family reunion. It was already dark, close to midnight, and I still had about a 2-hour drive ahead of me. I didn't stay overnight because I had to be back at work the next morning. At the time, I thought that I could handle it. Most of the drive was on those long, empty roads surrounded by dense trees and bushes on both sides. The kind of road that feels like fine during the day, but completely different at night. No street lights, no houses, just darkness pressing in both sides. About 45 minutes into the drive, it hit me. That sudden, overwhelming tiredness. The kind where your eyes feel heavy out of nowhere, and no amount of music or cold air helps. I knew it was dangerous, but I kept telling myself I'd find a place to pull over soon. But I didn't. There were no rest stops, no gas stations, just trees and more trees. My vision started to blur, and I realized I wasn't going to make it much longer. So I made a really bad decision. I pulled off the road onto the grass, just far enough to be hidden behind some bushes. I didn't want anyone passing by to see my car sitting there. The road wasn't completely empty. I saw another car every few minutes, and that made me even more uncomfortable. I checked the time before closing my eyes. It was 11:22. I told myself I'd just rest for a few minutes. I fell asleep almost instantly. I woke up to a scratching sound. At first, I thought I was dreaming. The sound was faint, like something lightly dragging against metal. I checked the clock, and it was 11:50. The sound stopped after a few seconds. I didn't look around. I was still exhausted, and I convinced myself it was just an animal passing by. And I closed my eyes again. The next time I woke up, the sound was back. This time, it didn't stop. I looked at the clock again. It was 12:40. My heart started racing. The stretching was slow and deliberate, like something testing the surface of the car. I tried to stay calm, telling myself it was probably another animal. But one thought kept bothering me. Why would an animal come back almost an hour later? I slowly lifted my head and glanced at the rearview mirror. Just for a second, I saw something move, a dark shape darting away into the trees. That's when panic really set in. My mind went straight to every scary story I ever heard. Urban legends, horror movies. I didn't want to find out what or who was out there. I started the car and pulled back onto the road immediately. Less than 100 yards ahead, there was a bend in the road. I came around and my headlights landed on another car parked on the side. The driver's door was wide open. I slowed down against my better judgment and looked inside. No one was there. The car was completely empty. That's when I checked my rear view mirror again. At first, I didn't see anything. Then suddenly, a man came running around the corner behind me. He was sprinting straight toward my car. He was screaming at the top of his lungs, "Hey, hey you! Get out of your car! Get out now!" Every instinct in my body told me not to stop. So I slammed my foot on the gas and took off. I didn't look back again. I just kept driving until I reached a main road with slides and other cars. I never saw that man again. I never found out whose car that was or why he wanted me to get out of mine so badly. And I don't want to know. All I know is this: if you're tired, don't pull over on a dark, deserted road. And never fall asleep where no one can see you. A few summers ago, I went out for a late night bike ride with a friend. It was one of those warm nights where everything feels quiet and still. We rode around for a while, just talking, killing time until close to midnight. Eventually, we split up and went our separate ways. I only had about 2 blocks left before I'd be home, so I wasn't worried. I lived in that neighborhood for a long time, and nothing bad had ever happened there. Because of construction, I had to ride on the sidewalk instead of the street. The roads were completely empty, and the sidewalks were quiet too. Everything felt normal until I reached the corner where I usually turn onto my street. That's when I noticed a man walking alone ahead of me. He looked to be in his 40s, maybe a little bit rough around the edges, but not homeless, just normal. That was part of what made me uneasy later. At the time, though, I didn't think much of it. The sidewalk was narrow, and I didn't want to scare him by suddenly passing too close. When I got about 6 feet behind him, I spoke up, "Hey, behind you." He turned around instantly. The look on his face caught me off guard. It wasn't confusion or surprise. It was pure anger. His eyes locked onto mine like I'd personally insulted him. I didn't say anything else. I just turned onto my street and kept riding. Then I heard him start yelling. At first, I thought he was just muttering to himself. But the shouting got louder. He was screaming insults, calling me names, saying he was going to kill me. His voice echoed down the empty street. And then I realized he was following me. My heart just started pounding. I live right off that corner, and suddenly the thought of him knowing exactly where I lived terrified me. I didn't want to slow down or stop, but I also didn't want him to see me go straight to my front door. So I made a split-second decision. I kept riding and did a full loop around the block. The entire time, I expected him to disappear. I told myself he'd lose interest and walk away. People say things when they're angry. That's what I kept repeating in my head. When I turned back onto my street, I finally understood how wrong I was. He was standing on my front stoop, not pacing, not walking away, just standing there, staring out toward the street. Like he knew. My stomach dropped. I felt cold all over. As I rolled past again, he looked straight at me and didn't yell this time. He didn't move. He just watched me. I didn't stop. I didn't even slow down. I rode straight back to my friend's place and stayed there for the night. I didn't sleep much. Every noise outside made me jump. I told my mom what happened, but we didn't call the police. At the time, it felt like there was nothing to report. He hadn't touched me. He hadn't broken in. He'd just been there. 2 days later, my bike was stolen from the alley behind my house. I never saw that man again. I don't know if it was connected, and honestly, I don't want to know. What scared me the most wasn't that he looked dangerous. It was that he looked completely normal. I was 17 years old, and I had just gotten my driver license. Back then, my friends and I had this stupid tradition. We were obsessed with finding abandoned houses. The plan was always the same. Find one far enough from everything, throw a party, and hope no one noticed. Most of the places we found were disappointing. Either they weren't really abandoned or they were too exposed. But there was one house that stood out. I'd pass it every day on my way home from work. It looked unfinished, not broken down, just incomplete. It was massive, sitting on a large piece of land, with nothing but darkness behind it. No lights, no cars, no signs of life. Just a giant shell of a house that never got finished. I told one of my friends about it. And one evening, before heading to a movie, I decided to show it to him. It was summer, just around dusk. The sky was still faintly lit, but I already had my headlights on. I pulled into the driveway and stopped in front of the house. We were there for maybe 10 seconds. That's it. Something about the place didn't feel right. So I put the car in reverse and headed back toward the main road. About a minute later, a truck appeared behind us. It was big, lifted, and its high beams were on. At first, we didn't think much of it. Maybe the driver was just impatient, but the truck stayed right on us, right in our bumper the entire way. Neither of us said anything, but we both noticed. When we reached the traffic light at the main road, I turned right. The truck didn't follow the road. Instead, it cut through the gas station on the corner and blocked us in. My heart dropped. A masked man stepped out of the truck. He was built like a wall, tall, wide, and moving with confidence. My friend and I froze. He walked up to my window and knocked on it. Hard. I rolled it down, trying not to show how scared I was. The road was usually busy, cars everywhere. But that exact moment, there was no one, no traffic, no witnesses. He asked us what we were doing at the house. My mind went completely blank, and I lied. I told him we were just making a U-turn. He stared at me for a few seconds, long enough to make my skin crawl. Then he smiled, but not a friendly smile. That kind that doesn't reach the eyes. He stepped back and waved us on. We didn't hesitate. I drove away shaking, and neither of us said a word until we were miles down the road. To this day, that house is still unfinished. Years later, it looks exactly the same. No construction, no for sale sign, no explanation. I'm convinced it was never abandoned at all. And whatever was going on there didn't want to be discovered. Thanks for listening. Subscribe for more true horror stories.